life is good for Brian Peck, because that seemed like to me, and you get out and you're still making good money doing what you love to do. If only Drake could have had that luxury that you got to do what he loves to do. Welcome back, it's Lindsey Unfiltered, and we are covering the fourth and final episode of Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV by Investigation Discovery. I viewed it on HBO Max. There's a lot of other channels that you can view it on, but this is the final episode, season 1, episode 4. I don't know if this is to suggest other seasons are coming, but this is the final episode. There is another episode after this, season 1, episode 5, which talks to some of the cast after the airing of the show and gets into the nitty-gritty of what made them do it and things of that nature. So let's get into season 1, episode 4. So we left off on talking about Brian Peck and him getting sentenced, court proceedings for assaulting Drake Bell, doing horrible things to him. Drake Bell says that he didn't get anything near what he thought he would get. That's kind of like where that episode left off at. He was like nothing near what Drake thought he should get. We pick up at episode 4. Brian Peck's entire side of the courtroom was full. His entire side of the courtroom was full. So with that being said, that is insane. He had an enormous amount of support. Drake had 3 people on his side. Again, not a lot of people knew that Drake was the child actor that Brian Peck had assaulted, but Drake had himself, his brother, and his mother on his side. Drake's mother made a statement, and Drake made a statement.
I addressed my statement to everyone in the room. I looked at all of them, and I just said, "How dare you?" And I said, "You will forever have the memory of sitting in this courtroom and defending this person. And I will forever have the memory of the person you're defending violating me and doing unspeakable acts and crimes. And that's what I'll remember."
So that's what he didn't address Brian Peck himself. He addressed the people in support of Brian Peck, because it's like, how could you sit in support of a person that's accused of abusing a child, especially if you're not related to them in any way? You're not related to Brian Peck in any way. His side was filled, and that's because he was well known. Brian had many letters of support from family and friends trying to get the court to be lenient on Peck, basically saying that Brian must have been tempted to no end before you could do something like this. Like his letters of support were basically saying things like, there's no way he could do anything like this. It's out of his character. I've worked with him for years. Like, the letters of support pointed to things like, this is not the type of guy who would do something like this. And he must have just been tempted. But it was a lot of victim blaming going on, basically saying that Drake must have pushed him to his limit, because there's no feasible way that Peck could have been capable of something like this. That's what his letters said. Peck gets 16 months in jail. For the guys who need to know what that is in years, that's a little bit over a year in jail for all of the heinous things, all of the grooming, all of the time built up, the driving the wedge between the father and the son, all of those things that Peck did. The intent, the buildup, the grooming, the trauma, all of those things that he did, he gets 16 months for. 15-year-old boy, 15-year-old co-worker, the relationships he destroyed, 16 months in prison. And then he has a job when he gets out. Oh, the privilege, right? Oh, the privilege. He gets a job on Disney for The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody after he's out. Life is good for Brian Peck, because that seemed like to me, and you get out and you're still making good money doing what you love to do. If only Drake could have had that luxury that you got to do what he loves to do. Convicted sex predators continue to still be around children. And that's an issue in America. That's an issue everywhere, I'm sure. In 2005, this man named Ezell Channel was convicted in the past for molesting a child he had in his background. And he was convicted on a Nickelodeon set for molesting a child. iCarly was another huge show that Nickelodeon had. It came shortly after Drake and Josh. I remember it. I was singing it in the previous episode. It's a very memorable, a very, very, very memorable theme song. And it was a very good show. It was a rise of YouTube, the rise of technology. They had their own web show called iCarly, and just everything about it was different. Everything about it was cool. And, I really liked it. Dan Schneider, they shift the focus back to Dan Schneider. Now, while Dan Schneider wasn't physically abusive to children that we know of sexually, that we have on record, physically, sexually, emotionally, yes. Misogynistic, yes. Emotionally abusive to children, yes. Dan begins to get into people's space a little bit too much, children's space a little bit too much. It was all about power. It was all about, this is what I want, this is how I want it executed, and this is how we're going to do it. Period, point blank. We're doing it no other way. And he eventually became very, very power hungry. Young girls were constantly and consistently sexualized.
You'd have to be pretty skinny to slide under that laser beam and not hit it.
So which one of us is the flattest?
My throat is my instrument. I'm a throat player.
Doesn't count.
And it sounds kind of gross.
A D?
I've always gotten A's in music. How does a person go from an A to a D?
Happened to me in 8th grade.
Hey, Sinjin!
Yes?
Do you have a girlfriend?
No.
You have a credit card?
Yeah.
Why don't you call me sometime?
Really? Okay. I'll go buy a phone.
It's like Mike and Molly.
You two were fighting, and you yanked Festus right out of his grub truck, and now he's in the hospital.
I just wanted a tamale.
Well, you went and broke his tamale-making arm, so now what?
We're sorry.
Yeah, well, until Festus is out of the hospital, you two are gonna work the grub truck.
Gross!
Trina?
I'm not gonna. Why should I?
And scenes like that. And girls were just sexualized. They were always wearing some mini skirts. They were always wearing something. But like I said, Dan Schneider had the advantage of the time of his audience, because when you think about it, his audience were kids. His audience were kids. So in the mindset of a innocent child, in the mindset of an innocent, prudent child, when they see these children, when they see these sets or these stunts or these scenes that we as adults may consider inappropriate, it kind of goes like this, right? So, I don't ever remember being like, oh my God, that's nasty, giggle, giggle, giggle. Now, today's children would probably catch on because of the rise of social media and the rise of perversion and the rise of innocence being lost in children at a younger age due to social media and things of that nature. But that's a topic for another day. But children 20 years ago would see things like I've shown you, and we would just giggle and laugh. We didn't know. So he had an advantage of having that young audience that would be like, oh, okay. Or their parents would even be like, oh, okay, my kid doesn't understand this to be fundamentally wrong, fundamentally damaging in any type of way. You know what I'm saying? So I think he got away with that for a long time because of the fact that it flew over kids' heads. And it was enough, even if an adult did catch on, it wasn't enough to alarm them, to say, this is too much. This is just too shocking. Like, oh, it's just too shocking of a bit. It rode the line of what was all right. It rolled the line for adults that are doing dishes, just glancing by, of what was all right. It was just, it rode the line and it flew over kids' heads. So Dan would always talk the women from wardrobe departments, probably makeup, women who he considered not to have a real job like him, to come give him a massage, even though they were doing their job too. They had to get people dressed. They had a job to do. They were there to work. They weren't there to massage him, right? And you have children on this set. Like Dan Schneider, him getting massages, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with Dan Schneider, a grown man, getting a massage from a woman if that's what he wants to do. But I also feel like there's a time and place, and you're working around children. They might think, oh, that lady does that to Dan all the time. Let me try to do it to you. That lady does that to Dan. You see what I'm saying? It's just kind of not the place. If you're a guy and you like massages, go get one after work. Hire a masseuse to come to your mansion after work. There's no problem with it. It's just a time and place. And then your coworker, someone that works under you to do it, it's demeaning. It's demeaning. There's no reason they should be touching you. They don't get paid to touch you. That's not what you hired them to do. It's wrong. Why didn't Nickelodeon stop Dan Schneider from getting massages? Money. Dan Schneider was the golden boy of Nickelodeon. You got to look at his track record. All that. The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, Henry Danger, iCarly. These are all top ranking shows. These are all shows with lots of merchandise. These are all shows with millions of views. These are all shows that put Nickelodeon as a household name. And who's behind those shows? Dan Schneider. America, we love money. Okay? So if somebody is in my company, I hate to put it like this, guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but in business, if somebody's in my company and they're making me millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, hold on to it, and they're making me millions, they're going to have to make a big mistake. They're going to have to make $100 million billion mistake for me to let them go. He was getting massages. I don't care. Some of the Nickelodeon execs are probably like, hey, do you want me to come down? And who cares? It's money at the end of the day that makes the world go round. So that's how we got away with it. If his shows were subpar, he'd be out of there. Money is privilege. Money is power. And he had wonderful shows. He had great success. Nickelodeon was happy. And that's how he got away with it. But time went on. And Dan Schneider would humiliate and publicly embarrass his cast members and verbally abuse them. And I feel like in show business, we have this with directors sometimes, but when you're talking to children, you have to be explicitly careful. Okay, when you're talking show business, I mean like dancers, singers, actors, actresses. We have people that are extremely hard on them because the talent pool is very, very scarce. It's your chances of being a star are very slim. Everybody is very competitive. So, and you're easily replaceable because somebody, if you're not going to do it, somebody else will. So when you get in those spots, you know, your director, your dance teacher, these people know this and they might see a side of you. They might see your potential and they're trying to get it out of you. So they might be pushy. They might be humiliating. They might be mean. And just say some completely, really embarrassing things, horrible things, honestly. Doesn't make it all right. The same thing with sports. I've played basketball. Coaches are not, when you piss them off, they're not nice people. But you have to think about children too. These are children. There's no reason you should be yelling at them, telling them if they didn't work for you, they'd be working at Yogurtland or like throwing trash bags in the trash can, or that's so demeaning. You are not the key to their success. Yes, they were a part of a show that you invented that was wildly successful, but you both were pieces to an amazing puzzle. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. You needed them as they needed you, Dan Schneider. So Dan contributes to a toxic culture and an investigation is launched. And Dan isn't able to interact with his cast as he usually did. We know this. Dan has been toxic since all that. Being misogynistic and toxic, yelling, cussing, screaming. Because he's that kind of director. He's that kind of coach. You have some coaches that just, if you've played sports, if you're a dancer, a singer, an actor, you have some that are toxic. Because they're either passionate or they just ain't shit. You have them. So they investigate and they say, you know what? Too many people are just saying you ain't shit. So it changes the way that Dan Schneider is able to work. He can no longer be hands-on. He has to direct from behind a computer. And that changes the scope of his work. He's a hand-on director. He's a hand-on producer. He likes to go in there, rearrange the scene, rearrange the direction of the shot. You see what I'm saying? So when he's behind everything, like not able to be hands-on with the work. The work doesn't look the same. In 2018, his career with Nickelodeon comes to a close. Dan Schneider is dropped by Nickelodeon after years of abuse to his staff. Not any physical abuse, any sexual abuse that we can prove, none of that, but emotional abuse, teaming up with children against their parents. Anything that went in his favor, he was for, allegedly. Dan Schneider's out here suing people, and I don't need to be on the list. He is suing the people who created this documentary, and I am just speaking how I feel about the documentary, reporting on the documentary. Dan Schneider, I am reporting on the documentary and what I uncovered. Allegedly, okay? I am not involved with the production of that documentary because I don't, hey, this is my YouTube career getting started off. I don't need to, come on, bro. Come on. Many of the cast members, we have a lot of cast members from Nick. Jeanette McCurdy, she was so, oh, I love that girl. She was on Sam and Cat. She was on iCarly. She was just, I loved her. I loved the way she acted. A lot of people, Minnie, Drake, Jeanette McCurdy, Amanda Bynes, many of them deal with mental health issues to this day. And and I'm not going to say it's from Dan Schneider. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. Dan Schneider is not the reason why they're dealing with mental health issues. Brian Peck is, in some instances, in Drake's situation, but these adults are dealing with these mental health issues because they sacrificed their childhood for stardom. And honestly, it's not worth it in the end. Because when you think about it, children need a certain element when they are growing up. And that is imagination, growing, play. Certain things that when you're working, you don't get. Certain things when you're held to a certain standard and treated like a mogul, treated like you're a celebrity, you don't get as a kid. So when you're stardom, when you're a star and this is stripped from you, you literally, and you become an adult one day, you're like, I never was a kid. So they're all still struggling to this day with the things they encountered on set, things we probably don't even know about, things they encounter with their parents, probably money issues with their parents, how to manage it. And I just hope that they're all able to find their way with that missing piece of life, because those issues can be hard. Mental health issues are not good. Anxiety, depression, loneliness, those things, because they're missing something, and I know how that feels to be missing something, but missing a huge part of your life and not knowing where to get it from, it's sad. And at the end, I kind of felt really bad because they were all explaining their experiences, and they're all the same. They're all the same. And it has nothing to do with Dan Schneider. It has nothing to do with the abuse per se. It has something to do with the system. Bottom line, the kids could have been protected, but they were not. Bottom line, the kids could their sanctity and their mental health could have been nourished, but it was not. And going forward, we have to protect these children who decide to go into show business, because we're seeing the same person come in and go out. We're seeing these brilliant people come in and go out. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't happen to athletes. Why with show business? What component? Can you guys tell me down below, what component is it about show business that drains these people? So basically that was this episode, and it was a very good one, a very good closing to the documentary. I absolutely loved it. The next video got A to Z. So we're going to do an A to Z, our first A to Z. It's going to be 26 videos, right? A to Z, and it's going to be on the top scandals in American history. A to Z. The first one's going to be A. It's going to be a scandal that starts with A. Nobody can guess it. I know you can't guess it because I can barely say it. So, guys, if you want to drop down some B to Z's, if you want to guess what the A is, you can. Subscribe. I don't know where the button is. Just hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me on, what's the other one? X. Guys, I'm so excited about the A to Z series. It's going to be more documentary style. So it's going to come in. I'm going to have photos. I might have voiceovers. It's going to be a little bit more of a documentary style project, 20 to 30 minute project. It will come in like this as well. I don't want it to just be, I want to make myself a part of the process as well. So I'm excited about it, guys, but this was this, and I think I'm going to do Breaking the Silence, which was the 5th episode of this, and Soledad O'Brien, I know I'm going all over the place, but Soledad O'Brien basically talks to Drake Bell, talks to some of the other cast members about what made them do it, and just additional interview about the documentary. So I'm going to do that just to get more videos out, because I need more videos. So I'm going to do season 1, episode 5, and then we'll start the A to Z. So make sure you subscribe. Our goal was to hit 90 subscribers, and we did that. So I appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you follow me on those other socials, and let's just have fun, guys. Let's just have fun. Comment, talk to me. I'll be sharing it all over Facebook. Share. I feel like sharing is a key component to growing. If you share it and somebody else shares it and somebody's going to see it, just share it anywhere. Plaster it anywhere. I just want you guys to share it. If you don't like it, share it somewhere. If you think somebody will like it, share it to them. Just tell them, share this to somebody. I appreciate you guys so much. This has been Lindsey Unfiltered. I'm giving you my unfiltered opinions. Thanks, guys.